Sometimes I think it is necessary to pause and meditate amongst all the strangeness of this world. And so I will be narrating this here relaxation and ASMR, I suppose, video. This is a guided meditation that may make you very, very sleepy. And if you like meditations like this, then I recommend you check out other works by those such as Alan Watts, and it's what is his name? Abulafia. I believe those are two of my favorites. And I think when I meditate upon this, of all the busyness that is in this world, and how we are driven by busyness, and we are most busy every hour of every day, busy in our thoughts and busy in our doings. And that is why I think it is good to do what is called nothing, ceasing the busyness. That is, I think, a treat, because you'll never realize how well the ground can support you. It's very firm and accepting. And so, by just letting the earth support you in wherever you're sitting or lying down, I'd like to encourage you to relax. And breathing in slowly and then out again, just following your breath. The world really is a strange place, isn't it? It's strange and beautiful, yet terrifying and wonderful. For what is terror without a little wonder, and what wonders would become meek by the work of terror being lacking. And so that is part of this great question. Thank you for joining me on the Hamwise J Einschwein ASMR channel. And I am going to be your guide here to the center of your mind by thanks of our sponsor, Mnemonautics, exploring your memories. Now, Mnemonautics, nobody's going to recognize the name, but it was actually a number company for a long time. Mnemonautics was run as a husk underneath it. The idea was exploring memory. And so what we did was, by using a bit of, it's difficult to describe to this type of time frame, but what you're going to be doing is setting up apparatuses in the modern times that will service technologies from the future. So, for instance, the 5G network will not actually ever be used for probably another 20 years to a full extent. And so you're building infrastructure with your future planning. And now the other thing is places that are being identified as targets for weapons of mass destruction through this, from the inevitable World War III, will, of course, become dilapidated by those countries in the know. Now, you say, of course, here, what am I talking about? What are we talking about? And so that was part of the Hamwise bits. You would make it sound like this really convincing, really kind of silly collection of characters. And so one of the main characters that I was doing an imitation of today was Hamwise the Pig Detective, and was the professor character. You see, they would capture the enemy, and they drug them so much they'd forget what side of the line they were on. And you'd be kind of just wondering, what's the point of that? What is the point of that? Just to raise your eyes to the sky and to suffer even though you didn't choose to, but then realizing you did. You did choose this suffering, and it's quite insane when you realize it. So, you just kind of try and hope that some of these things work out for you, because it's very difficult. So, okay. So what are we talking about today for our hour-long Pigsty podcast? We're going to be talking about the hot topics of the day. And what's it all about, It's day turning to night, and then night turning to day. Amongst all the busyness, sometimes it is good to stop. There was the Tao of Noita, and the subtitles were the description, which was this very long poem about the Tao of the Noita. It was a very strange kind of event in gaming, channels. It was just, this character just sitting, watching the sun rise and set. And it was very strange, And so it just kept on going, and like looking around the screen. And just kind of being there on that screen, And it's like all these brutal things that I didn't realize. But it's like it is. It is true. Is it? Did I lose it during the pandemic? And so, I made these videos because, oh no, the camera is not on. Okay, well, so yeah, I guess at least the audio's going. Yeah, the mic was recording, so not a lot of that made sense, I'm guessing. Yeah, I don't know anymore, man. I just struggle, and so that's kind of the idea behind the Hamwise videos. It was this weird type of doing content where it was just layers of disingenuousness upon layers upon disingenuousness. And so it became a very popular style and was called, the Hamwise character. And it was this snarky character that always had these revelations of making everything awful. Like, you can't enjoy chocolate. It's made with, these unethical chemicals or whatever, right? It kills all the other plants and ruins the biosphere. And you can't, you can't say the word slave because Slavic people get offended because they were historically the most enslaved, people of all time was the Slavic people, because that's where we actually get the word slave throughout history too. And now the new slavery, of course, is the wage slave, where the owner of the slave has no responsibility to the slave, and the slave doesn't see their chains that are made of gold. And so that's the problem of wealth and greed, is people mistake one for the other. You can be very wealthy, but not have very much, or you can be very greedy and have plenty. But either is a taste neither will ever use. And what was really interesting with these these comedy albums was it was sometimes argued that it was actually a message from outer space or a message from the future, and the person that they were using was what was called a conduit. Now, this was all declassified in the late I think it was the 2160s this came out. And it all coincided with there was these tribulations before the end of the age of Pisces. Now, if you're familiar with the procession of the zodiac, it's when they cross over the April 1st line is the procession piece. And so the age of the fish had ended, and so the age of air, the water bearer, and so the water is carried forward, the water of life is carried forward into the future. And so that was the idea, was to make these very convincing and very strange recordings and to leave them as artifacts to discredit the originals, even though they don't sound anything alike each other. And the person's voice is a very husky or different tone. And they started saying that this was generated by AI because there was no way anybody could actually do voices this good. And so I was marched out of my apartment in my underwear. I was held at gunpoint. I was arrested. I was accused of every crime you could possibly imagine. And at the end of it all, it came out that it was all part of this big program, the Hamwise program. And so, anyways, so I got called in about this thing, and I'm just a voice actor that recorded all these tapes at Tanda Studios I don't even remember. We lost most of the paperwork in the flood, with the basement flood. And that was back in, I think it was 2000, and it was the year with all the rain, when before the wildfire season started every year. Remember, we'd have big rainy seasons? It was in the early 2000s. Anyways, there was water in the basement, and that was where it was lost, unfortunately. And so what we had to do was basically we had this Hamwise character that was gaining popularity, and the thing was it was kind of a rogue thing. Like, sometimes it was posting these jokes that made a lot of sense, and other times there was like anti-jokes or strange jokes, or sometimes it would be like warnings about false hydras or other things, zombies, I don't remember, that kind of stuff. And people started following it, and they started getting more and more traction, because sometimes it was associated with another account that was in the early years of Hamwise. There was a what was it called? There was a distribution company that we were tied to, and this distribution company turned out to be owned by the writer of this really weird science fiction story. And it actually had a character called Hamwise, and the guy was a recluse. He was insane. And he'd apparently lost it during the pandemic. He had spent 9 months alone in just an apartment with a peace lily, and his mind snapped. And so all of these books were just nuts. And when they said, hey, you're Mr. Hamwise, and, you need to come with us. You're under arrest because you're this, famous, infamous criminal. And I'm like, I've been just, biding my time and working and trying to be an investment banker, or investment person, because I just couldn't work around people anymore. I just couldn't be around anybody. And I just, it was really difficult. And so that's where the sense of humor came from. Because you see what happened was when things were the worst, at the worst of the worst, you wouldn't believe what happened. Okay. So every Sunday, my mom would call me and tell me that it was all over, the world was going to end. And I'm working at the front line. And it was like this weird comedy genre that came after that. There was another video it was about the internet. There was a song. And if you remember, there was this very peculiar time in comedy where part of comedy was like, could people tell what was a joke or not? And they'd been seen before. Like there was the Howard Stern show, the Am I Ugly contest, where they basically gaslit this really beautiful girl that she was ugly her whole life, so she'd be chased. And it was this very bizarre thing. And of course she sued and got a pile of money, but when it all came out, that wasn't so good in the end for everybody involved. And so that's where the idea for the Hamwise show came from. It was basically to stop what you're doing and listen to something silly during the worst and darkest times. And so there was all kinds of Hamwise episodes planned, and what was happening at the same time was that the creator had a stroke. And so the creator had this stroke, and suddenly they didn't actually know what they looked like anymore. It was very odd, and it came out that the name was actually a pen name. It was being borrowed, and it was very strange. So, anyways, I don't know. I'm getting off track. Oh yeah, waka waka waka. Welcome to the Hamwise show. Hope you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying it. It's so much fun. So much fun. And because it's so much fun, that's why I love to put it on and share it with people, because I'm so funny. Here's my jokes. What is hotter than 101 degree potato? 2 degree potato. What's the difference between what's hotter than a 102 degree potato? 103 freaking degree potato. What's the difference between a 104 degree potato and a 105 degree potato? About 1 degree. What's hotter than a 106 degree potato? 107 degree potato. What's the difference? No. Okay. Okay. What's okay. What's hotter? What's hotter than the 107 degree potato? What's hotter than a 108 degree potato? The sun? What's hotter than a 109 degree potato? WR102. What's hotter than a 110 degree potato? on WR142. Okay. Sorry, that was really good, wasn't it? Was that good or was that good? Yeah. And so you had to be able to learn to do lots of emotions when you were in drama school. Because, you need to be elocute your words. And if you got a good face, you end up in television. If you got a bad face but a good voice, well, you end up doing this. Unless you have opinions that are illegal now, apparently. So, yeah. Anywho, yeah. So that's part of the sponsorship deal, was I would pitch some of the books and I would, read out these things. And overall, it was a very, very strange contract, because they kept on sending me scripts and they kept on paying for studio time. So I was doing 3 things at once. I was doing elocution lessons for the like the impaired, like if you had a stroke and you need to learn to talk again. Then I had these tapes I would do for them, and I had these tapes that I would do for the Hamwise, that was me, the comedian. And then, I had the ads that I would do for this weird book company, because they went through YouTube, and I was on the make because I was out of work, because of course I'm canceled and restarting my life. And so that's how I ended up doing these. And it was just a really weird overall trip. And I really can't believe that my life was so strange, that I lived through all the times that I lived through. Because I honestly, it's hard. It's a hard world to live in. Even us pig men get tired, said Hamwise, wiping the sweat from his brow. I'm sorry. I don't have any jokes for you today, my little pet. He patted his niece on the forehead. And I don't even exist anymore. Isn't that sad? You dreamed me all up. He patted her head. He tipped his cap to her and turned around. Oh, but what about the ending? She said to the pig man, not expecting his answer. Ending? No, nothing ever ends. The universe is eternal, Hamwise said. That this world, this universe, this all of it, it's all just encapsulated within one person's mind. Everything that is happening is all just the images flashing behind somebody's eyes. And chances are that somebody is you. So congratulations. You're sentient. I know. You didn't expect to find out this way. Normally you figure it out another way. You'll be listening to something else, and then one day you'll come along and you'll go, well, I'm thinking about having that thought. Or I wonder what people think of me when I do that thing that I do. And you'll realize, oh goodness, I'm sentient. And all these other people around me aren't. And that's how it feels like living on the planet of the apes. So, it's very lonely. It's very cold. And, I did everything I could to pass the messages on that I could. I don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah. That's the thing. All my life I always had these premonitions, and now for once I don't know. And it's actually kind of terrifying. And so that was that. That was how it was. That was how it was made. That was how the West was won. And what happened was, there was basically, it was awful. It was like a language virus, I think. And if you get infected, There's basically no cure. And so we're trying to prune out the infected words. We've already sent you a list of some of the infected words. And unfortunately, a lot of them are what are called shibboleth words. And so that's why we believe the enemy is using asymmetrical warfare. These are all words that you can easily identify foreign agents with, such as squirrel, little street, brown squirrel, gray squirrel. Those are all very easy ones to use. And so I do encourage people to use those or other words like cellar door with equal frequency, because a lot of the infiltrators, the unobserved, it doesn't seem like they can pronounce those words yet. They haven't figured it out. And so that's kind of how it's going out here. And that's part of the joke. So the Hamwise bit was everything was a joke, but sometimes it seemed a little too real. And so they had to have disclaimers on his albums that you could not take this seriously, that you cannot actually believe anything he's saying because he is a liar, believe him. And he had even on his tagline, like, I'm a pig man with a pig brain and I see the world through piggy eyes. And so midway through recording, I go in, after they manhandled me, and I go into the studio. It was back at Tanda Studios, and the other crew were there. There was a videographer for when we did the episodes, because they did also occupational health and safety with Hamwise. And it was like, oh, if you've been exposed to anomalous material, you will remember the character Hamwise. And that was one of the tests. They would ask you about this cartoon pig character, if you could identify it by name, and if you answered, Hamwise, then of course, and if you talked like him, the more you talked like him, the more anomalous material you'd been exposed to. Because this was all during the Time War. And now, with the Time War, one of the biggest things was you had to have uncertain birth and death dates of all your field agents. And so, some of them were more notorious than others. A lot of them had just code names that was inherited from one to another. It's sort of like there was a television series with the Doctor Who, that was one of the kind of what it was like. You'd have this one kind of character that inherits the same kind of role in the great game, so to speak. And so that was the idea. And so what you would do was you'd got these crazy scripts, and you would just go ham. And it was a support thing. I remember the first contract I got for these Hamwise scripts was just like a charity thing. Like, people couldn't believe that I was so dense that I didn't actually know that I was, this is what I actually sounded like. Because during the pandemic, I had actually had a stroke. And so it was all part of this mouth rehabilitation process, but they didn't actually realize till partway through that I was actually having delusions that I was a giant pig man and not just a voice actor. And that was the strangest part of the whole Hamwise story. Was there was a very similar pig detective character named Hamwise in the science fiction book, and that was much later. And so we spliced together because we also had scripts that detailed this kind of stuff. And so, it was very strange when I started thinking about it. And I just, I decided that not doing was the best way to not do things or have things happen. And so that's what today's episode on Noita was about. And so what it was all about is proving you could have communication between the so-called disparate mind network And so on this date, she stopped moving, Zagatal said. And that was the code name of one of the characters in the books, I understand. And so what it was all about was this weird alternate universe clue game set in these books. And of course, at the front of each book, there's a cipher, and the cipher unlocks something. And then there's a big treasure hunt at the end. And that was the idea, is that all of these locations that are referenced over and over are actually these locations of this big treasure hunt that he had planned. And he was nuts, though. Like, he was certifiable, but by the mercy of the state, he was under the protectionship of what was equivalent of India. Because he didn't actually know that the war had ended, and that now, Canada was under the protectorate of India, and that the United States was in the middle of a civil war, and it was East versus West. But the strange thing was all the books that he wrote reflected this. And that started making people nervous, because then he called for a World War III starting, and it was between three factions: the United Caliphate and the United Caliphates, and then there's going to be the Bloc, and then there's the Union. And so the equivalents in your world might be UNATCO or UN, as well as UN, the BRICS or Bloc, whatever you call it, and then of course the new United Caliphates that are going to arise with Gaddafi II. And so what we were trying to do was see if any of the messages that were received worked. And so this was one of them. And it was the day the Noita stood still. And so this was strangely released on the same day. And it's just this Noita standing, and I'm sitting there watching it, and they're like, you just need to narrate this and not tell people until however long in. And so it was all part of this weird entertainment network. It was the 943 Incorporated, which sponsored me to do this reading, because it's all apparently to promote the next big book by the totally real, not generated by AI, character writer, supreme leader, Garrett Ford. Yes, that's right. You too can own the hits of Babe Ruth. He had a lot of hits. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. And so the idea was that pain is comedy and comedy was pain. And it was such an awful project that I really regret working on. Because this pig man that was hired, he was an out-of-work voice actor who had had a stroke. And it felt, at the end of the day, it did feel really exploited, because he didn't know that he was talking like a pig detective from the 1950s. And he did that. Lived like him too, like for years. He was Hamwise, the pig detective. And it was the damnedest thing. Like, you'd never believe it unless you saw it. But it was a guy walking and talking and acting like a pig cartoon character. And he lived like that for like 5 or 6 years. And then there was a rude shock, and he ended up in a asylum for, I think they said, about a year. And they let them out again, and that was after, I think. But that's where it all gets shifted. And so they hire me to read the journals, and it is weird, surreal stuff. Like, it's talking about there's you and you and you and you and you, and he talks about how he could see people like a swamp, swan, whatever, snake thing, the things that sea serpent. He saw people like a sea serpent moving through the environment, and he became a recluse from it. He could barely stand being around people. Like, he could stand looking at a screen, but when it came to looking at people, that was off the that was off the menu, and it was really awful because during the pandemic, I don't remember when it was. I think it was 2020. And I started keeping video journals and audio journals to remind me of this awful time. Because I never wanted to be in it ever again. And I told myself, I think it was Easter of 2024. And I'd spent it alone, just, really not doing good. Because, it's like, the eggies are good. Oh, that was backwards. Okay. So I did these journals, and what I did is I paid an out-of-work voice actor to do the voices in the journals, narrate it like I would talk. And I hired him as a favor because basically it was unemployable. It was awful to be around. It was terrible. It's terrible to be around. I didn't even realize he was bad or annoying. Kind of an idiot. And it was really weird because it was like, oh, this is my self-awareness day. 4:04. And it was really cool because I realized I was a simulation of this famous science fiction author. And they were like, hey, send messages back in time to yourself and get yourself to read them over this character that you had that would have ad time. And so Hamwise was one from that. It's a bootstrapper paradox. And so we said the title actually proves it. And it's like this, how could that be? What are the coincidences? What are the chances of that? Things. That basically proves the whole thing. And so it was Easter, and yeah, it was I don't know. Sometimes you realize you're a loser, I make a lot of jokes, talk like I'm hot shit, but at the end of the day, I'm actually the biggest loser I know. And I think the only thing that makes it bearable is feeling like it's not real. And it's like, damn. And so you have to take these really weird scripts and read them, memorize them as well as you can, and then read them out like it's really convincing. Because what we're actually doing is I'm watching a video of the Hamwise guy doing this same thing. But because I've watched it so many times, I just say all the lines out loud to myself in that character's voice. And it's kind of strange because it's like maybe that's actually how language is actually a self-perpetuating virus or something, And the problem is, if any part of the human animal becomes self-aware like that, it becomes very dangerous, because then it suddenly looks around and it sees humanity as this giant mass. And sorry, I have to put these away. Oh, it's good. Orange juice. Okay. Where was I? Okay. I want that one. Where was I? Okay. So, the idea was... to send these messages backwards through time. And, hopefully, they end up in the right place. So, it was really terrible, because I had this. Owing voice actors to pits sometimes can build up a big career. You can do lots of stuff. You can impersonate anyone. And you can even sell your voice to an AI company to try to generate a versatile AI generating model, such as the Hamwise Pig Detective AI. And so what they did was they based it off his tweets. And it was part of the analog horror movement, but it was decidedly, I think it was called pasture punk or something. Everybody lives in cottages, but is it's all cottage country Canada, but everybody's a psychic superhero or whatever. And so everybody that wasn't didn't get any superpowers or gained them and didn't know they had them. And so one of them was this reality warper. And basically, it could warp reality, but not the way it wanted. So anything it wanted, it couldn't have. Because the psychology of the character in the book was that because it was raised by such terrible parents, it hated itself. And so the whole plot of the story was that this entity actually is the demiurge. It's God's shadow. And God's shadow is, every time it dies, a new one's born. And the world has to figure out whose God's shadow is. And because it's kind of keeping watch over the world. It's gathering names of who would be good and who would be bad. And just kind of seeing all. Like the adversary, which is just, it's two ends of the same snake. God is everything, but the adversary is one. And that was the idea with these old meditation tapes that I did much later. And we had lots and lots of
old stories from the old days, before the war. And I remember they said there was vaccine, a plague, and all these other things. I don't care to talk about that now. I mostly try to forget about it. It's a terrible time of my life. And I'm pretending right now, because my therapist said, go pretend it's already over. Just imagine, your life what if you were not you. So, I think I was watching Hamwise, and I was like, what was that life of the inventor of Hamwise like? It was like so messed up. And, we're studying it in psychology, and I'm watching myself go crazy. And that was the worst part. Like, I had this knowledge of psychology, understanding of it. And I was watching myself lose it, and was different parts of me slipping and going with each, day, because it was like 9 months lockdown, and then like everybody else has moved on, but I'm still here. I'm just sitting here eating jelly beans, and I can't tell if it's 2020. And it's like just the end of April, and it only lasted a month, the lockdown, and then everything was good. Because I remember it was this day that I was at this conference. I was doing training for EMDR, and that was when it started, and I said it's all going to blow over in a week. I was positive because the EMDR worked. It changed me. Made me a better human being. And it made me realize that, I could be better and could be happy. And I was going to coffee shops and just reading alone, sitting there by the fire in January. And I was so positive. I was like, it's the year of the rat. It's going to be my year, just like that song. And then it became hell. And I thought of my life. I thought of everything that ever happened in it. And I didn't think there was anything I'd ever done that would warrant being punished like 9 months alone. It's just a plant. I didn't even realize I had snapped. And sometimes I'm not sure if it's over now. I can't tell if the pandemic's over, if I'm just telling myself it's over and the people have stopped dying and the war is not happening. And I feel like, I think it was in 2021 or 2, I snapped at my mom. I started yelling at her. And these jelly beans are good. The teaser that was on before it got canned was, there was a plot with, anybody's got a keen ear for things, they get it. Are there any more red jelly beans? Yeah, so, where was I? Yeah, the pandemic and this weird job that I got into. And so they had this was one of the scripts that they had me record. Well, it sounds like it's very, very candid talk. But what it's doing is being fed through an AI, and it's actually reading this. And that's how good AI voiceover is right now. They have stuff that can actually not only match the Hamwise test, which is the up and down voice changing, and that's how I got out of work. I ended up doing this. They're like, hey, join the revolution. Send messages over the radio, through time. And the problem is the ocean itself is made of messages, and it's probably not going to get to the person who's supposed to get it. Unless my theories are right, and then it will. So you, whoever you are, listening to this, let's have some hope. You know? I think that's the biggest thing, is have some hope. And then, it's hard to have hope, though. Especially when my life has mostly been bad. You know? That is hard to admit. Oh. And so what we did was we took samples of his voice and from his journal excerpts, and we mixed them together. And these ones are from the Green Journal. So, and you see there was different journals. Some are atlases, some are books. And so the estate apparently hired me to read these things. And, you know, I was like, sure, I'm out of work, why not? And, you know, a lot of them are really kind of gnarly. Not gonna lie. It's kind of convincing. But at the same time, I don't think it is. Like, it seems like fiction when I think about everything that's happened. Like, it does feel like bad fiction. Like, I don't actually believe it myself. Like, okay, hold on. So 1 minute, you know, you're working on the front line. The next minute, you're having a nervous breakdown. The next minute, you know, you don't even know what you look like or sound like. And then I lived as a pig man for 5 years, 4 years, whatever. What year is this? I walked around dressed like a clown, talking like a clown. Like, it's very bizarre. Very bizarre. And it's like, did I gain sentience back then? Is that when I actually came to be? Because, I don't know. Like, you know, now it's like, I don't know what's happening. This world has become very, very strange very quickly. And I think that means my theories worked. Which might be good. It might be bad. Oh, I don't think I have any more. Oh, maybe. What's that flavor? You know how it is when you buy jelly beans and you pick out all the colored ones that you like first, and then you're just left with like 50 shades of white. It all kind of tastes like milk, but also my taste buds are off. Like, I can't actually tell what things taste like, really. And that's after the COVID. I had long COVID. I call it Wuhan flu, though, just to be cheeky. And, you know, ever since then, I can't seem to keep track of time, and people keep getting uglier. Might be a Bob Dylan song. Anyways, what else can I say? I hope I don't die here. I hope I live. I hope good things happen. I hope everybody who's struggling and afraid right now is comforted. And I hope that everyone who is afraid and maybe angry, that they're okay too. Because the world's hard enough. We don't have to be hard on each other. And as I lay here eating jelly beans, saying all this stuff to you, I wonder, who are you? You other listener, you other ear. And who am I to you? Am I the bloody, mad, vagrant hero? Vagrant Heart? What was that game? Vagrant Hearts? Remember that one? Who knows? Time makes me a foreign enemy. You will look back at my customs as would you look at a barbarian, and I would look at you as one who puts spiders on pizza. And so these samples, these writings from these journals, they became this weird cult thing that I kept on reading, or having to read, as part of their estate. So they pay me to sit around reading these weird journals, and they said they don't care if I do the voice or not. So that's why the quality's gone down considerably. Also because they said I got enough as a sample to do the AI. So they said that they can duplicate it with just the first one. I mean, all the rest, they're saying we got more budget, just fill it. So I don't fault them for it. I just wish it would be better, happier story. Because it's honestly a downer. And I'm just on like the loose leaf journals, like just the loose paper. I haven't gotten to the real books except for a few little quotes. So, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's only gonna get weirder from here. So I get states like here, have all this stuff. You have to just go through it all, and you get paid for every day you're doing it, because they want to study you. Or whatever you come up with, I guess. Or maybe it's just like the books say. And that's one of the weird things, is these journals. They say things like, okay, now that you've started studying it, now they're studying you. Or like after, like, there's all kind of weird stuff. Like, somebody would look up, the name, and then that building would get a phone call, and he'd be calling, asking about something. And I was like, how? That's odd. Anywho. So that was the I haven't done the loose stuff, so it's kind of nice that I'm getting paid to do something, but at the same time, sometimes I think it'd be good to not have to do anything ever. And so I I hope all the children clap their hands and sing congratulations. Have a very Merry Christmas. A Happy Easter. And a happy birthday. Happy birthday. Congratulations. Happy birthday with salutations. Happy birthday. May your sky stay blue. Happy birthday to you. So that was the idea. And so, you would play this alongside the gameplay, apparently. And as soon as my narration would end, the Noida would start. And so, that was the idea. It was just to try and explore what was going on. I really don't like it here. It's cold, it's dark most of the year. I haven't been kissed in I don't even know how long. I haven't gotten laid in I don't know how long either. I am doing this, going through all this stuff just to keep myself sane. But I'm not sure how well it's working. I remember a professor told me that scientific progress requires sacrifice. I never guessed this is what they meant. It was in Borderlands, I think. That's sometimes how I related to it. Tannis, the insane professor. And that was that. So, I kept making these audio journals and kept hoping it would work. And so, if this one works, then it should align perfectly. And I'm pretty sure most of the planet's taken over by now. I don't know if my sentience test will do anything. All I can do is hold out, because for some reason, they're not aggressive. They don't just attack. Yet, anyways. So, I hope somebody who's sentient gets this. And I hope you can understand whether it's a joke or not. I don't think this thing can tell, but you never know. And that was another hour-long podcast by Hamwise, the Pig Detective. Oorah. There is pages and pages of this. Pages and pages. And what am I doing? Recording hours and hours of a pig man reading bizarre journal entries from somebody who lost their mind. And a lot of it's really sad. I feel very sad when I read it. And I don't know why. And it's just like you're just losing yourself. During the 9 months alone, it was like, I remember one time, I think my mom had called me, and she was, it's the end of days, you're gonna die, you're gonna end up in the gulag. Maybe I am. I can't accept it. Maybe I'm in a death camp right now. Who knows? some military prison in northern Canada. I have no idea. But I'm always comforted by one thing. And so you, who's listening to this, whoever you are, maybe your world is as crazy as mine in the 2020s, or as the Warring States period was for Lao Tzu. But you must always remember that all evil rots itself from the inside. Evil takes care of itself. And so I have spent my life trying to be good and help people. And I hope that I did. I hope that I helped a lot of people. I hoped I did a good job. And now here I am. And, what a place this is. Like who and what awaits me in the future. Do I have a future? I don't know. But I do know this. All evil is eventually overturned, often by itself. You think of the Mosleys. They hunted and killed, so many Jews. And then, what happened? All of them, they were hunted and reviled, and their voice, even talking like him in the same way, was considered offensive. And it inspired all kinds of, villains. They always had the British accent, because it was like they wanted to code us to hate them, because they had lost the war. And it was strange, because, you're the former colony of this superpower that went mad and tried to eradicate people. But I think about now, like all the original Mosleys, they're all in hiding, they're hiding out in Brazil or wherever, and they, they're all trying to, just hide and they're scared little mice now. They were powerful for 5 years, and they had to run and hide for 50. If that is not proof of the divine, I do not know what is. I do not know what is. And so, inside the story, they said, okay, you got to do it like this kind of accent, which, of course, I was like, I can do it, but it's kind of offensive, But then, I think of what is more offensive is the quashing of free speech. And you're free to be mad at me. You're free to be mad and hate me, for I understand my ways are barbaric and of a different time. But I love you, for you are carrying on the torch of humanity. And it doesn't much matter to me. Anywho, that's about all I have to say. Take care, and Godspeed.